Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jack Farmer, his name is Andy Rossi, and this is the Evolution of Movie show. Andy Rossi, how you doing, fella?
I'm doing great. I'm coming to you live from my parents' basement in Chicago.
Your parents' basement is the quintessential TV parents' basement. It looks like if you were on Everybody Loves Raymond and went to the parents' basement, that is what it looks like.
This is true. Yeah, to my left is a pinball machine, and straight ahead is a ping pong table, and I'm seated at our bar in the basement. So
we
got
gotta
it all.
get Mr. and Mrs. Rossi on one of these days.
That's true. Yeah, we should. They'd be good. They
they're
did
not-
watch this movie with me last night.
Oh, did they like it?
That I don't know.
You didn't even ask. The movie ended, and you're just like, okay, good night.
Yeah, they were kind of watching it, kind of not watching it. Think they might have thought it was average. I'll ask them after this.
Well, they're not on this episode, but we do have a guest, as always. And I'm very excited for this one because it's someone who knows a little something about the genre we're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest this time around is none other than Theo Francocci. Theo, how are you, buddy?
How's it going, guys? Doing good.
Now, Theo, you know a little bit about the genre we're going to discuss today. You've made yourself some horror movies. Tell us about it.
Yes, that's actually how I met Andy. Both our films were selected at the Culver City Film Festival here in LA, and he was there with Dead Body feature film, and I was there with a short film called Nyctophobic. Then I produced, directed, and acted in it. It was a lot of fun. I always enjoyed the genre. So at some point I was like, why not? Let me just try and see what comes out, right? And I know that horror has always been considered like a B genre. But it's an immortal genre though. Like horror films they're always fun to make. They're always fun to watch. People go to the movies. And to me, it was more like a challenge, kind of saying, let me try and see if I can make one.
Interesting. So everyone's going to have to check that out. Where can they see it? Is it available streaming anywhere? Is it on YouTube or anything like that?
Not yet. It's still in the festival run. So probably next year.
So we're going to have to make sure at the end of the episode, we get all of your social details so people can follow and make sure they check that out when it's available.
It's very good. I've seen it.
But
and scary.
I don't know if you saw Dead Body, but I have quite the role in Dead Body. I think I took audiences by storm with my tour de force performance. One line.
Wait, let's see if Theo knows what part you're in. Theo, do you remember seeing Jack in the movie?
So embarrassing. No, I don't know, Jack. Yeah, you have to. I don't know. I've only seen that at the premiere, basically. So
yeah, I had literally the smallest role in the entire movie. I was the guy talking to Clean Larry before the heroes show up. That's I had one line. I was upset about a bottle being half empty, but I don't want to give away the whole movie. I like to say because it won an award for best ensemble, I like to say I won the same award as everybody else did. I was just as big a part.
No, be proud of yourself.
Yes. Yeah. I thought you were great.
Well, let's talk about a movie with a lot of very good parts in it. But before we do, this is the Evolution of Movies show. And for people who are new to the show, what we do is we watch a movie and then we come here on the show and we talk about it book club style. But we call it the Evolution of Movies because we always pick a movie that came out 1 year after the last movie we watched. So this year we started in 1980, went to 1981, 1982. Now we're all the way up in 2011, a time when movie theaters were filled with hits like Drive, J. Edgar, and of course, Hall Pass. But we aren't talking about any of those. We're talking about Cabin in the Woods, a movie IMDb describes as 5 friends go for a break at a remote cabin where they get more than they bargained for, discovering the truth behind the cabin in the woods. Wow, Theo, had you seen this movie before, and what were your thoughts going into it this time around?
Yes, I did watch it maybe like when it came out. So watching it again was interesting for me. Like I don't know. I think I got a little bit more of the actual story, and the details, and in general, like the production. I would say I enjoyed it. Probably not one of my favorite horror films of all time, but still, I think that the creatures, the VFX, and also a little bit of the mm, themes were very interesting.
Yeah, this was one, much like Dusk Till Dawn, which we watched a few episodes back. I had no idea what this movie was when I saw. I just thought it was a horror movie. So when I
Mhm.
went in, so much of it caught me off guard about
Uh-huh.
like what is this? And this is one of the few horror movies I've ever watched where I was trying to figure out what's actually happening. Because most horror movies, you're like, yeah, Jason comes out of the water and he kills you. And there's a little bit of story behind it, but for the most part, he's just this unstoppable dude that's gonna kill you. You know, Michael Myers is there's some story to it, but you're not really like, what's the lore? What's happening? Where this was a very much like a wait, what's happening? How is
Yeah.
this all going together? And it was done in such a fun way. I remember just really enjoying watching it. But Andy, uh, let me know what were your thoughts on this movie, Andy? And also, this is where we get into the Rotten Tomato guessing
Yeah.
game. And Theo, what's going to happen is Andy's going to try to guess the Rotten Tomato score, and then
Okay.
you are going to guess whether or not the actual score is higher or lower than
Hmm.
what Andy
Okay.
picks.
Sounds
So,
good.
so Andy, let us know what you thought about the movie, and then let us know what you think Rotten Tomatoes has it sitting at. The critics score, by the way, is what we go by.
Got it. I had seen Cabin in the Woods once before, and I think I may have fallen asleep the first time I saw it because I forgot everything. Like I watched it last night, like I said, with my parents and my wife, and my wife was even saying like, "Oh yeah, remember this happens?" And I go, "No." She's like, "Remember that happens?" I'm like, "Not really." So for me, it was almost like a fresh take on it. So it was actually really cool. And I think the movie does a great job of in the beginning, you kind of wonder, did I put on the right movie? Like it's like in this like office, you're like, huh? But I think like the creatures and stuff, very Evil Dead ish, and I love
Yes.
Evil Dead, so I totally dug it. But yeah, I had seen it once before. I do think it was good. I think it was very unique. So I think Rotten Tomatoes they probably got a pretty good score, but horror movies tend not to get a crazy high score. But this was, I thought, good for a horror movie. So I'll go, I think I might say this number a lot, but I'm gonna go 79.
All right.
79% puts it up pretty decent score, pretty positive. I'm trying to remember what was around that area that we've watched. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but uh pretty good 79. Theo, do you think the actual score is higher or lower than 79% on Rotten Tomatoes critic score?
I think Andy is very generous, so I will
Oh,
say lower.
I would have predicted lower myself. I thought that this had everything that would give you a low score on Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes has it sitting at 92%.
wow.
One of the
Whoa.
highest
Okay.
rated
92.
movies we have seen.
Whoa.
I mean, that puts up there
Wow.
with like
Yes.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. That puts up
92.
there with like Jurassic Park.
Did we watch the same movie?
Wow.
That puts up there
That
with
was
Mad
another
Max
movie.
Fury Road, which was wildly high too. But yeah, this
Incredible.
one
That was just for Sigourney Weaver, probably.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, must have been. Yeah, they're like, well, Sigourney's in there.
Like,
That's
whoop.
plus 20% right off the top.
Right.
Like
Okay.
you
Yeah.
have to
The
tack that on.
Sigourney score.
As I was watching
Wow.
this, I think one of the things that Hollywood likes and critics like is when movies reference movies. And so I think
Right.
this probably got a high rating because this basically is them almost trying to explain horror movie tropes that we see in
Yeah.
every horror movie. And I think that critics love that kind of stuff, which is why I think this movie got pretty high up. But
That's really high though.
I loved it as a viewer, though. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not the world's biggest horror movie fan. I get squeamish, as I say. And so I
Right.
think one of the reasons I like this movie is because it allowed me to decompress some of the squeamishness with some comedy throughout
Yeah.
and
Yes.
some like, oh, haha, this is why they're doing it. And so as a person who doesn't necessarily go, I want to go see people get brutalized, I could see it and then be like, oh, but he, it's funny. Like, it allowed me a little bit of a vent in that regard. And so I think that's why I really like this movie too.
I can see
Plus,
it.
Plus, Chris Hemsworth's in this movie, and let's not pretend that wasn't a delight. Well, let's get into it.
Let's say that Chris has the best death of the movie.
Oh, yeah. The most shocking to me.
Yeah, the most shocking.
And kind of hilarious.
Absolutely.
that wasn't. Yeah, exactly. It felt a little bit more like a just pure comedy in that moment instead of right. So like
you kind of knew it was coming, though.
We got it. Yeah, we definitely have to. We'll definitely have to break down that part because that to me was probably one of the most pivotal parts of the movie. Was that moment?
That's for sure.
And before we get into this movie, though, I do want to take a moment to say a thank you to everyone who is listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or is watching on YouTube. Hit the like, comment, share, subscribe, 5-star reviews, all that stuff. We desperately need your validation.
Desperately.
Good God,
we're
please.
Not ashamed of it.
Yes, we need it so badly.
Just please give us a review.
But let's we'll dive right in. We start with two fellas at work, and they're talking about fertility before being told that Stockholm is out. And only us and Japan are left. What that means, the viewer still doesn't know. Elsewhere, a girl dances in her underwear in a part of a room with a 360-degree window. Her friend talks about dyeing her hair and boys and a camping trip. Oh, and Thor is there. They hop in the motorhome and they drive, but someone is watching them from the roof. Theo, I always like to start with this question. Tell us about the world that we are about to live in and the characters that inhabit it.
Okay. I mean, I think it's I like the idea of having a little bit of a teaser at the beginning with the two scientists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of saying to the audience already, look, this is not the typical story about these kids going in the woods. This is actually the story of these other two guys who are God knows where doing God knows whatever, right?
Yeah.
But you guys don't know yet. That being said, look at this bunch of kids, right? And then we go into the college mode and directly to the students, and we know that Chris obviously has a girlfriend because otherwise it would be ridiculous, right? Come on. So Chris with girlfriend, and then there's the other friend that never gets laid no matter what because she's technically a virgin, right?
Yes.
Yes. And then looks, at some point there's a stoner because obviously there's a stoner in the story, right?
Yeah.
And you're laughing at them a little bit because you're like, oh my God, this is such a stereotypical horror film that we're about to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But what you don't know is that it's gonna go south pretty quickly. Because then there is that beautiful review, though. I have to say that shot at the beginning is very nice when they leave with the van. And then we go all the way up and we see that there is a guy on top of the building, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the setup, right? There are these kids and someone that is observing them, and we already know that they're gonna fall into the trap, like both of their shoes.
It's interesting, Andy, too. These scientists, you immediately get the idea that there's something nefarious about them and the guy watching them, but as far as horror movie tropes go, the kids, they are stereotypical, like horror movie 101 characters. But the scientists, they're not that. They're almost the exact opposite. They're not like devil worshippers or creepy. They're about as average, normal guys as you can get, talking about their wives and like, oh, it's a crazy whatever day. And they seem so normal. Already, I'm kind of backpedaling. Like, is this stereotypical or is this what's happening here?
And beautifully cast, Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins as the scientists. And they have a line too. You don't really know what's happening, but it says something like, we haven't had a glitch since 98 or something. And it's just like, what does that mean? And then so you're having that world, and then the stereotypical college kids was so funny. I thought they were like Scooby-Doo because you had the stoner Shaggy, the blonde was Daphne,
That's right.
Hemsworth, of course, is Fred. They just didn't have a Scooby. I guess they needed a
They had
dog.
Velma.
Yeah, they had
Yeah.
Velma.
I actually had the stoner written as Shaggy in my notes, like
Yeah,
literally
totally.
up until I cleaned him up right before the show, and I was like, "Oh yeah, his name was Marty." But yeah, I was calling him Shaggy the whole movie.
And how cool was his bong? That was like the coolest bong I've ever seen in my life.
I
Yeah.
gotta say, I
It
wasn't
becomes
a
a
fan
mud.
of.
Boom.
I
Yeah,
wasn't a fan of the stoner though. I felt like, as the way he portrayed him, felt like an old guy who's never been high, imitating what he thinks a stoner is supposed to be like.
it felt
Right.
like
So
that.
acting. So and
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it felt a little too. But then again, this movie, and maybe this is why it gets such a high rating, is it almost gets away with it because it's not supposed to be good.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a bad horror movie group, like, and so I almost wonder if that is intentional that he was like that, or if that was just a like they get off scot free on that because, again, if the acting was great, you'd be like, well, this is it's almost if it was good, it would almost betray what the movie is, if that makes sense.
I think they went really hard on the stereotypes, kind of almost like a parody of it. Even like her not really being a virgin, and
Yeah,
then the blonde. Right when you meet the blonde, she dyes her hair blonde, and you're like, she's dead. Like she's gonna be
yeah.
the first
Yeah.
one
You
dead.
already know at the beginning. Yes.
Yeah,
I want to talk, Theo, too, about Thor in this
Okay.
movie. By the way, I know what his name in the movie is. I'm calling him Thor.
Sounds
It
good to
was
me.
it
The
was
Almighty.
it was interesting going back and seeing him. One, he's aged gracefully because he doesn't look that much different now. But it was interesting. You can tell he's grown as an actor since this
Yeah.
movie, and like his accent and all this other stuff.
For sure.
And I just want to get your thoughts as a director and a producer, just being able to see that actors can grow and improve. And that's not a shot at Thor, by the way. I'm just saying it's interesting. You can see he's gotten better.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I would say it's a matter of who you work with, right, and how. So
Mm-hmm.
it kind of feels that the more you become famous, the more you kind of unlock the chance to work with directors who've been around for a while. So they might have, I don't know, like maybe working together on the actual acting skills is best cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the more you know what the director wants, the more you know and you feel more comfortable. And I don't know, probably that's what happened to Thor, right? He just had a lightning bolt of of acting. Just at some point it arrived and he became amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
experience.
Also, I feel like every time I look into his eyes, he becomes a better actor. I'm just like, oh, swoon.
Okay, so no, not at the abs. At the
Not-
eye.
that's where I was.
well, his shirt stayed on the whole this whole movie. Otherwise,
That's
of
why.
course.
That's why my rating was so low.
Yeah, I should have had his shirt off more. He did have his shirt off once though.
Yeah.
At least,
At
right?
least.
Before you
Yeah,
die.
it's in his contract.
Right. It should be. As a viewer, it's in my contract if I go see a Chris Hemsworth movie. So we move on, and Marty starts talking about how he believes society needs to crumble as the gang stops at a gas station and they have a tense conversation with the attendant there. They continue to the cabin through a long tunnel, and once there, they find a one-way mirror, but this mirror isn't the only way people can watch. At the lab, scientists are watching from the lab. Great notes, Jack. At the lab, scientists are watching from the lab. And they receive a terrifying message from the Harbinger on speakerphone.
The Avengers of the situation.
Eddie, I want to start with you here. At this point, I was wondering, is this a comedy or a horror movie? Like, where do you place this? Because
Oh,
they're
man.
the Harbinger's on the phone with the speakerphone, and they're laughing, and there are certain things that are silly, but when they do the horror in this movie, it's horror. They don't do it like a scary movie, for instance.
Yeah.
Right. So where do you put this? Is this a horror movie or a comedy?
It's a tough one, yeah, because I think it is funny, but I do think it's pretty gruesome. That's why I said it's like Evil Dead. I always thought Evil Dead was scary but funny. So,
Yeah.
and this kind of is almost like a parody of a lot of horror movies. So, if it was that Blockbuster Video, I think you put a copy in horror and a copy in comedy because it kind of is both. But what I really want to talk about again is Hemsworth. Um,
Of course.
but I was just thinking
Go on.
when they meet when they meet that guy who's amazing, like spitting his tobacco, like what a great role. I'm like, you got Hemsworth, you got we find that other guy's very ripped as well. Kick that guy's ass. Like they just like let this guy like
And
be
he
all rude to
starts,
them or
right?
something.
He goes, but then the other guys are like, okay, no,
Holden
no, no.
says, "Cool it." Yeah.
I'm like, you got Hemsworth here. He could take him out all on his own. But and then that leads to I was just thinking how Hemsworth is so ripped. But then we go into the cabin and there's the two-way mirror. And I like how the guy, it's so funny the way he does that with the girl, because that's all of us. You know,
Right.
you see the girl taking off her shirt, you're like, oh, I should probably stop this. Let me get one quick. Okay, I'll stop. But I thought it was funny because I thought that guy was hilarious because he's like, let's swap rooms. And then he knows that she could see him now. So immediately he takes off his shirt and just like flexing around the room. I just thought that was hilarious. It's just kind of like, oh no, let me go in that room so you could see. I've been doing a lot of crunches lately, so let me head in that room real quick. And then he's all ripped up.
To be fair, if I had those abs, you would never see me in a shirt ever. It does, no matter. It could be like at a wedding, and I'd have my shirt off. I'd just be like, "Hey guys," so well played on him there.
Yeah.
But Theo, I want to talk to you about how what I loved about this is how elegantly the lab scene kind of explains parts of what this movie is, where they say the gang needs to see the signs, they need to ignore them, and they need to create their own fate. Now, we don't know how far that goes, but I like that they're sort of explaining that there's something's wrong is going to happen, but the gang needs to make it happen.
Yeah, that's probably the part that I like the most about the movie is like you mentioned, like there is self-referential, right, to other horror films, so that the audience is like, okay, so they end up in this cabin in the woods, and something is gonna happen, and there is some evil, like Evil Dead, right? They're just gonna awaken, I don't know,
Yeah,
some creatures or some demons or something dark
right.
and evil, and they found a way to kind of putting all of this together like a horror universe, right, where all the demons, all the creatures, everything bad is there, and you have to find the kind of evil that you want to kill you, basically, right? So
Yeah.
just pick your card, right? You have all the cards available in the cabin. You just have to find them, and then obviously they open up the door to go down in the basement together with Andy, because Andy also is in the basement, right? And is the
Yeah.
I was
Well
waiting
done.
for the joke to land. I was like, why is it not
Yeah.
landing?
I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, was there a character, Andy?
Yes. Right. Yeah. Andy is in the basement. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And he's in the basement, and he finds this book, and it's written in Latin. And obviously, the thing that you want to do is, yeah, let's pronounce Latin because it's
That's
super cool.
yes.
It's super cool.
Well,
Let's just
I'm
do
so
it.
glad you
And
said
the
that.
stoner obviously is the one saying, "No, no, what are you doing? You're speaking in Latin now. There is no way you're gonna, evoke something evil." And everybody else like, "Nah, come on. You're in a cabin in
yeah.
the woods. Nothing bad can happen, right?"
But that's again what I thought was kind of brilliant about this too is one is again it's explaining why people in horror movies are always like this, but
Yeah.
two, and Andy will bounce it back to you. The harbinger is telling them something is wrong, something's different, and they're laughing about it.
Mhm.
And they're hearing that Japan earlier on went out. And now looking back in retrospect, the scientists were also getting all the same clues that something was going to go wrong, and they were ignoring it kind of in a parallel to the gang in the cabin.
Yeah, that's very true.
Nice.
Yeah.
So they go pretty much through the same character arc together, right?
I,
Where they have this awakening together.
I think again, just kind of looking back in retrospect, now that I've watched this movie with more of an analytical eye, I was thinking, the scientists, as much as they're making fun of the group in the cabin, they are also getting all the same, kind of making all the same mistakes along the way that, spoiler alert, when we get to the end, leads to their demise as well, which I thought was kind of an interesting little play there. But you
I
guys
like
meant,
that. I like that. I just think that like we percentages, like if you want to play with realism, which this movie do not have at all,
right?
right? But then again, because I like realism, I would say, what are the chances that these guys they're planning this awakening in multiple areas in the world and they fail all of them? Like, this is bad luck. Like, this is the most bad luck that they can go through.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, it's interesting
Try.
because as they're showing, and I don't remember when it actually happens, but it does show the at some point the like all the different locations,
Yeah,
and like
Kyoto.
one is like on fire, one
Yeah.
is like all this horrible stuff is happening to all of them, and no one seems to care. And I'm thinking I would never work at a place where it's so common that this kind of stuff happens, that when I see a building blow up, I'm like, well, yeah, Kyoto. Those guys.
Right.
So that was something I was thinking. I don't know how much they get paid, but
Not enough.
not
Not
enough.
enough.
But we do talk about the cellar, and so I want to get to the cellar portion where. So first, Jules makes out with a wolf, and then that makes the cellar door burst open. Everyone dares Dana to go explore the basement, and they find a bunch of creepy stuff, but it's the diary that Dana finds that grabs everyone's attention. She reads it out loud and causes the torturing redneck zombies known as the Buckners to crawl from their graves.
Yes.
Thor and Jules then go out to the woods, and Jules is horribly killed by the Buckners. While the scientists seem pretty happy about the Buckners killing everyone, it's now we start to see how they are manipulating everything, spraying pheromones to make the teens act different than they normally would. And even though it seems they caused the death of Jules, they say a prayer after she's dead and say that people below are watching. Theo, what did you think the first time you watched this? What did you think was actually happening with the scientists at this point? Like, because this was where I started personally thinking that they had like some sort of, I guess, almost like Squid Game, like sick TV show that people would like, rich people would watch or something. But what were you thinking at this point? Like the first time you watched it, did you have an idea of what was going on, or where were you at?
I would say my first impression, I mean, this is the thing that probably scared me the most about the movie, because I didn't find the movie to be extremely shocking or scary, but the idea that there is, this group of people that professionally can manipulate you remotely, that got me. I have to say, that was the thing. Yes, for me that worked. I didn't know in which direction we would have gone from there. I kind of felt that there was obviously something like a higher scheme, or they had a plan that we don't know yet. But honestly, yeah, the creepiness of these guys kind of throwing you all these things, that was a little unnerving.
It was, because as you're watching it, everyone always says, this is what I would do in a horror movie. I would do this, and this is why I would survive. But now that we know there are people manipulating things, you realize, no, this is why they make the mistakes. This is why, even though they're zombie killers, they're like, let's go out to the woods and have sex. It's because there's pheromones being sprayed in their face, and there's all this stuff manipulating them. Andy, I thought
and that's
it was
the big change. That is the big change compared to the previous horror films, right? Where it was just the characters doing silly things because they were silly. Right here, it's not that they're just silly. Actually, they're not even that silly. Because then I remember that one character says that Thor is an actual nice guy, and he would have done that because it's not his personality, right? So we know that there is something different than usual.
Right, and that was something I didn't notice the first time, but this time I did notice, because I remember when Jules, before she makes out with the wolf, she was like grinding on, or like dancing for all the other guys. And I was thinking, that seems very weird.
I was thinking that too.
Like, I was like, I would not be okay if my girlfriend was dancing with my friends like that. Maybe I'm just not secure enough, but I was like, I don't know if I'd be okay with that. I feel like I'd be like, maybe you had too much to drink or something.
Yeah, no.
Which she didn't, right? Like when was
Yeah.
she drinking all that stuff?
And
Yeah,
can
well,
I
not
just
too.
say about them, because they're supposed to be like in college, right?
Yeah.
They're playing Truth or Dare. I don't know. I felt like I played Truth or Dare when I was like 13. I don't know. It just seemed like a
Right.
strange game to be playing anyway.
I agree. I
And
mean, I can see that.
why did he want her to make out with, he calls it a moose, but why did he want her to make out with a wolf?
Also, that's not a moose,
so weird.
exactly. It's like, do you
So
know the
weird.
difference between the animals? Probably not.
That's what I was saying. It's like an old guy that's never actually been high
Yeah.
Right.
writing this character. It's like, that's not how you are when you're like, you don't
Yeah.
mistake a wolf and a moose. It's not he's not on
Right.
LSD or something.
Oh
like
man,
it's
I wish I had Rick from Rick and Morty playing his character.
yeah. But I
Yes.
will say, I don't know about you guys, but I was tense when she was making. I was like, that wolf's gonna bite her face off.
I thought so too. Yeah.
Tense, like
Yeah.
in which way?
It was
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
hot.
Where exactly were you
It wa-
tense?
It was pretty. I'll tell you this much: if it was Thor making out with the wolf, we'd have a it'd be a different conversation. But yeah, I guess that's where the pothead was getting. It was also funny to me because they kept calling him like,
Oh, man.
okay, pothead, and making fun of him as they're all
Yeah.
getting drunk. Like, also, Andy, did you ever? This is me overthinking movies here, but I was
Yeah.
like, growing up, I feel like people typically hung out with the people who would drink about as much or smoke about as much as they did. Like,
Yeah.
did you know anyone that was like a super, super stoner that hung out with people that didn't smoke at all? Because that's how
No.
this friendship seemed to be.
All this stuff always is, it's like a central casting of characters. It's always so weird. It's like you got the jock. Like, I mean, I'm in my hometown right now, and I was definitely like a jock, and all my friends played sports. You know, we didn't have like the token, whatever. I guess in this movie, be the nerd guy, even though he's
Right.
ripped, and then
Right.
the stoner guy. You know, they all kind of like were together. So yeah, it was very
Yeah,
strange.
especially if they're gonna like make fun of him for it. Like, okay, stoner. Like,
Yeah, it's like that's what he does though.
That's why. Yeah, you've known him probably for a while. Too.
He was the guy in a car 30 minutes ago with a coffee mug that turned into a bong. Hey, what is this guy?
Exactly.
Check this guy out, stoner guy. He just had the bong that he made out of a coffee mug 30 minutes ago. You just saw that.
Now, this was fascinating me because when I first watched this, again, I didn't really know what was happening, but I saw all this stuff and it did all seem like terrifying horror movie stuff, but I hadn't really figured out that they were picking their poison, so to speak.
It's like a choose your own adventure, choose your own nightmare, basically.
Yeah.
And I just love that they circle back to it at the end where when they figure out like, oh, we chose this. And you're kind of like, you can kind of see the monsters that they would have picked. And it actually made me think like, I'd kind of like to see the movie with different monsters.
Yes.
Now I could imagine them doing Cabin in the Woods too.
Yes.
We'll get to why they don't, but with different monsters.
With the giant cobra.
Yes.
Yes.
With the merman.
The razor
They
blades,
already
the
made
Hellraiser
that one.
guy.
I think it's called The Shape of Water.
Oh. Also terrifying.
Also terrifying. Yes.
So Marty hears a voice that tells him to go outside, and he noticed that there are no stars in the sky. He gets ran over by Thor, who is covered in blood, and the Buckners aren't far behind. They barricade the house, and when they decide to stick together, the scientists spray them with some gas that makes them split up. Marty finds a camera before getting drug away by Judah Buckner, and Holden and Dana drop into the killing room. Judah tries to get Holden, but Dana kills him? I don't know. Judah and Thor kills Judah, but Thor opens up the door and they get in the RV and they start driving away. They almost escape, but the tunnel gets blown up by the scientists before they can. but it'll take more than a collapsed tunnel to stop Thor. It'll also take an invisible wall.
Oh no.
Best
Holden.
part of the movie. Best
Very
part
hot
of the movie.
rod-ish.
It's just like, yeah, like pure action and comedy and tragedy at the same time. Just like for that scene, it deserves the 98%. What was it? 98?
92%.
92. All there.
I mean, just to wrap up this part, Holden eventually decides to try to find another way out. Dana realizes it doesn't matter. Holden gets stabbed in the back of the head and they crash into water where Dana barely escapes to the dock. But yes, let's talk about this jump because.
So did you have? Now I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you guys have a moment where we were like, oh, maybe Thor is coming back this time? Dressed up and blonde and with the hammer.
I
was hoping. That was in my dream later that night.
Like
I would love to see Thor in this movie.
Yeah.
I want to see the actual Thor in this movie. But
they did a good job, by the way, on that RV. That dirt bike was on the back of the RV the whole time, and I was kind of wondering. I'm like, because I forgot about that part. I was like, they should use that dirt bike, and then they did.
Yeah, and then they did.
That was so funny though. He's just like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make this jump, and they're like, you can do it. You just got to put all into it. You just got to go all in. He's like, I know, I'll do it. I got this.
I don't know about you guys too, but one of my favorite parts about this scene is they showed us that the wall is there with the bird earlier on hitting it.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about it. And so when he went to make
funny. That's why, to me, that's why it was funny. Because that build up there was like, he's gonna jump. I'm like, where is he gonna jump? If there is a barrier he's gonna destroy in the moment he arrives. And then everybody's like, yeah. You're like, no, not to do it. Please don't. And then
I do give him some good time of doing it.
Told you so.
And it looks so heroic the way he's jumping too. You're like, because like I said, I forgot. I was like, oh yes, bam. I was like, oh, that's right.
And what a far fall. It's like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. He just falls like 6,000 feet down.
He does the goofy
falling and falling. Everyone's like, oh no. And you're like, falling.
I think too, because he's such a star now, I just assumed he was going to make it. Like, it's like, oh yeah, he's Chris Hemsworth. Like this is, and so for him to just smash into an invisible wall and fall to his death was so shocking. And like, wait, what?
I thought for sure he made it to the end.
No, it's like That's why I had that moment. I was like, he's coming back, either as a zombie, either as something else, right? But he is coming back. Otherwise, what's the point of spending all that money to have Chris Hemsworth in your movie and then you just eliminate him like this?
But that's what I loved about the fall too, is like, because he hits it, and then like Andy said, it's so fall, it's just like boom. Like, it's like watch, it's just like you're like, oh yeah,
you kept going, he could still survive.
Yeah,
he could still
maybe
survive.
He can't. But maybe no, gone forever.
Still falling. Will he hit water? Nope. That was the moment of the movie to me where I really was like, wait a minute, what is going on here? And it does kind of bury the lead of when Marty's like, there's no stars in the sky. They don't really come back to that, but I mean, I guess it is kind of a thing, like a thing. But this was definitely part of the movie to me where I was like, it's almost frightening too, though. Cause like, wow, it really is hopeless for them. There is no way out. Like it's built that way, which also kind of made me a little more frightened for the last two involved.
And when she falls in the water, because Bradley Whitford's character was talking about the merman, I think at least twice by now. So when she's in the water, I'm like, merman's coming.
He's coming.
Yeah. He doesn't come yet.
But wait, can we go back to that scene? Because there, to me, this is, I don't know how technical you guys want to go, but I was impressed not only because it's super funny, but also the VFX are great. And do you think that they shot that on a green screen, or how do you think they shot that sequence
for the
bike?
For the dirt bike?
Yeah, for Thor on the bike.
Had to be, I would think, right?
as opposed to
Looked great.
as opposed to like just fully VFX.
I
Like it
mean,
had to be like a real
the
person jumping, and then they
Mhm.
just added that in. Because
Yeah,
I don't know,
I mean, the
but
force field was real.
the force
yeah,
the force field
obviously,
was amazing though. Like for that time, right? The VFX are
yeah,
top
12 years
great.
ago.
It
Uh,
feels like an Avenger movie with the shield, right?
yeah, it did a really good job of showing us like you get it immediately. Oh, it's a shield. Like
Mhm.
Yeah,
you don't. There's not a confusion about like
that's right. There's no doubt. Like you already know as the audience, you already know what that is, right? With no
right.
explanation.
Did you
Which
guys ever think they were gonna make it through the cave?
I
That's not a
still
good
was
question.
I was totally baffled at this point about what was going on, so I didn't really have a way to
Mm,
I didn't know. Like I was very confused with what was going on in the best possible way, and that like
yeah.
I was definitely rooting for them as you do, you know, but I think this was to your point about the cave, I think this was one of the best. It was such a good way of doing like I call it the running up the stairs, you know, bit
Hmm.
you always see in horror movies where it looks like they're getting away, but you know they're not getting away.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because you're right. There was a bit of like, are they going to get out? Are they going to escape? Like, what are they going to do? Maybe because the way this movie was set up, there was a level of like, oh, they might get through at that point. But once you see the invisible wall, you're like, oh no, this is
Oh
toast.
yeah, once you see that, well, and it's funny too. Right when Thor's about to go, he says, "I'm gonna go into town. I'm gonna get big guns. I'm gonna get cops. I'm gonna get," and you're just like, "You're dead."
Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to do any of this stuff. Yes.
Right. So that was yeah, that to me was probably the most pivotal, like biggest moment in the whole movie was when he
Hmm.
died.
Yeah,
Also, definitely let me feel like no one is safe because again, the biggest star just got killed.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it makes you question everybody at that point. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
um,
And you already know that at that point that the big evil is coming, right? Because we're almost what 3/4 of the movie, pretty
yeah,
much.
we're through. Like, also, I love this movie. It's a nice 95 minutes. Just a
Yeah.
Exactly.
ah,
Yes.
perfect. No,
Very
didn't
smooth. Great
doesn't drag it
pacing.
out. Yep, just boom, 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 boom. You never get stale. I loved it.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, but one of my kind of favorite parts of the movie, just because of how absurd it is Dana is attacked by Judah Buckner as the scientists celebrate their big victory.
The
But
REO Speedwagon.
yeah, like she's just getting murdered, and they're just like, "Yay, we did
The
We
it!"
did
guy's like
it.
hitting on a girl in this office.
But a phone call from upstairs says that there was a power glitch and one of the people is still alive, and it's Marty. He saves
Right.
Dana and they escape into a grave with an elevator that takes them down to the lab, a lab with monsters like a werewolf, Pinhead, and of course, a mist creature. But Dana isn't
Guys,
talking about any of them. She's talking about how they actually chose the way they would die. A SWAT team heads to the elevator to kill Marty, but the two kids release all of the monsters into the lab, and everyone starts dying in horrible ways. The security guy blows himself up. A tentacle gets the female scientist, and the one guy finally meets a merman. Everyone is dead except for Dana and Marty. So this is a lot of stuff
Wow.
happening.
guys, but can
Goes,
we say that Marty or Shaggy was
yeah,
high all the time? He was high
right.
all the time. Okay, so he survived. It's like you're genius. I don't know how you did it. How did you do this?
I kept waiting for them to say something like he had so much like weed in his system that the pheromones
Exactly.
weren't working, but they never did.
No.
He just survived somehow.
Yeah, they said
With no
something to the
food, with no water, just being stoned all the time.
they said
Right.
something about how he somehow is figuring it out. I'm like,
Right.
huh? I don't know what
Right.
they gave him. It's like we didn't give him weed. We gave him figuring out fuel.
Right. I didn't because yeah, they said something about the blonde hair dye got to the jewels
Mm,
and so they were messing with him, but for some reason he didn't get anything. He was able to figure out, and he was also able to fight suddenly for some
Yes.
reason. I
Yeah.
don't know
with the
where that
bong.
I don't know
Perfect.
where that
Yeah,
came.
like with the gun. He had a gun and a knife, and then he gives the knife to her and keeps on shooting people and doing stuff and
He
surviving
chopped up that
together. I'm
one
like,
guy in the
how can you
elevator.
like
Yeah.
how could you even see these people, you know? Like, I didn't you just, you know, but
How
whatever.
paranoid was he? His heart must have just been racing a million
But
miles
he
an
knew
hour.
it. He knew it from the beginning. He was like, no, there's
Yeah, the
someone.
puppeteer stuff.
Yeah, puppeteer stuff.
So this is where we see all these different monsters, and again, this is where we see that they picked their poison. And again, I love the different types of monsters they show and how they show us familiar ones, like who's clearly the guy who's supposed to be Pinhead, and the werewolf, but also just like the ballerina with the hole of teeth
Oh my
for a
Yeah,
God.
like
face.
piranha face or something.
Yes.
And yeah, this is where
Clown. I did
It's like
not
a
like the
kraken.
clown.
More like a kraken face, I would say.
Yeah.
yes.
Oh yeah.
I was thinking, Theo, correct me if I'm wrong here. Maybe
Okay.
I am not. Maybe I wouldn't be the guy you'd want in this situation, but I would rather face the SWAT team than all of the horrors of scary movie history all at once. I feel like that wasn't a smart move to release everybody.
Right.
Like if I
Right.
said to
Yeah.
you, Theo, you've got a SWAT team coming after you, or Pinhead from Hellraiser, I'd be like, I'll take the SWAT
Maybe the
team.
SWAT. Maybe the SWAT.
Like,
Well, they thought
I
they were in a
must admit, though,
protective
I have
office.
I have to say, in front of that like console with all those things and buttons and stuff to push, I don't know if she knew what she was doing, right? Because it was more
Right.
like maybe I'm trying to find I don't know, like a way out instead.
Yeah.
That's the question. Did she
Okay.
know that she was, bringing all the evil out or not?
Can I say though, when she sees the Pinhead character with the chainsaws in his head, she starts banging on the glass. I'm
Yeah,
like,
she's like, I want to
worst
kill this guy.
idea
You're a bad
ever.
guy.
That glass breaks.
Right.
Yeah,
I'd be
and
so bad if I was Shaggy.
I feel like if there's one of them you don't want to open, it's probably his.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I mean, Wolfman's gonna eat you. That's not gonna be any fun.
Yeah.
But
You know what's happening.
Yeah,
Pinhead,
that Hellraiser.
Hellraiser, who knows what that might get a little
Yeah.
dicey. I was thinking too, she hits
Yeah.
the big red button that releases them all, and I was thinking, you sure you want the giant, easily
Cobra.
the one that you might could easily bump into to be the one that opens up everything? Like maybe you put that like away somewhere behind a locked key where it's like hard to get to
Yeah.
release everybody. Like,
Yeah.
could you imagine?
I
Like,
agree.
I brought donuts for everyone. I'm going to put them down right here. No.
Ah, the snake. And
Uh,
where were those
oh,
people?
man.
Why was there nobody in that room?
Yeah, good question.
Everyone was celebrating already.
That's true.
I'll tell you this. This was my one key like disappointment with this movie is I wanted to see more of the horror movie people fighting each other. I wanted to see like Wolfman trying to take on the girl with the Kraken face. You know, I
Yes.
wanted to see a little bit of those guys, like what happens when they collide. That I wish we got a little bit more of it. I was a little bummed out. They all were like, no, the humans are the only ones we want to destroy.
Because
That's
they're
true.
bad. They're worse than us monsters.
Well, yeah, they got him in holding in it. Imagine living your whole life in an elevator.
Yeah.
You'll be pissed, right? You'll be very pissed. The moment that they release you, you're like, I am so mad at everybody.
The mist creatures, who's the real monster here? Me
Exactly.
or you?
I thought the most clever monster was the unicorn.
That's the 92%. That's the 92%.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a movie that goes beyond this. It's about humanity.
Yeah.
But not trapping people into weird glass elevators.
Don't put them in elevators.
They'll piss everybody off.
But Andy, you were saying about the unicorn.
I just thought that was such a funny monster because everything is like the scariest thing ever. Then you got this beautiful unicorn, and I'm like, oh, that must be one of the good. Oh no, bad guy. It's like monsters gone wild. It's like monsters everywhere, and then you got this beautiful unicorn.
How would you feel if you were the last of your species, though? Right?
And you had to spend your life in an elevator.
Exactly.
Yeah. If I opened up if I was in the basement and I picked the unicorn trinket, I definitely would get killed because I'd be like, oh my God, a beautiful unicorn.
Oh, I lucked out. I looked out.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys got a snake? I got a unicorn over here, suckers.
And then even if I saw it like it killed Andy, I'd be like, what did Andy do to make this unicorn so
Pissed off that
angry?
unicorn.
I'm gonna go pet it.
Fault,
It
definitely.
was Andy's fault.
10-1, Andy said something wrong to the unicorn.
Yeah, clearly.
You know me.
So this movie wraps up here, and Dana finds large human depictions and realizes it's her and the gang. Ripley shows up and explains that it's a ritual sacrifice or it's the end of the world. Since the other countries failed, Marty must die. And before Dana can shoot Marty, the Wolfman attacks her. Marty fights off Ripley and she gets an axe in the back of the head. And the Wolfman gets chased off as Marty and Dana light up a joint and watch the world end. Theo, I would have shot Marty.
I mean,
I'd stand by that. Like,
or at least just push him, right? Just push him
Yeah.
accidentally, push him out, right?
Marty, you're dead either way. What are you doing?
But
Like,
that's the thing, right? Like here is like seriously though, the theme here is like, do you want to save the world or do you want to save this guy for like 15 minutes? Like was she
Yeah.
thinking that she could have done something maybe with him in those 15 minutes? At least. At least.
Yeah.
Because otherwise,
Yeah.
what's the point of keeping him alive? Like, try to save the world, right? But that's why this movie is different, because she becomes like an anti-hero a little bit. It's like, oh, you know what? Let's raise hell. I want to see how bad this is gonna go, because fuck life, right? Oops.
Right. No, there goes the explicit tag.
Oops.
I'm just so confused though when Sigourney Weaver Ripley comes out. Why don't she just come down guns blazing, shoot him, shoot her, and that's it? Like, why does she not bring a gun? She just comes down
Big
and gives
reveal.
them all a stern talking to.
Maybe she had superpowers. Or she had alien in the back pocket. She was just waiting for it. It was like, you guys don't even know what I have here.
You know what I was missing from this scene too is if I was Marty, I'd be like, oh, am I the one with the spear? Oh no. Am I the smart one? No. Oh, I'm the fool. Oh. Oh.
I know. Poor Shaggy.
Like I wouldn't have realized it. No matter who was with me, I'd been like, am I the hero? No.
Oh, so there's two athletes. I get it.
It could be like me, Hemsworth, and The Rock, and I'd be like, so all of us are the athletes? I don't get
That's
it.
cool. That's cool. Wonder who the fool is.
Is
like,
Ripley
he's a
the
champion
fool?
of thong making, So, he's an athlete. You never seen anyone puffing all that smoke in one day.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right?
he fought off a zombie with a bong. He does deserve some athletic credit.
At least he tried baseball for, I don't know, one semester.
I was thinking though, there was nothing likable about Marty, and so when they let the world end, I was thinking, yeah, Marty, if I was the Virgin, you'd be dead right now. That's what I'm saying. And the world would be thriving.
If he was Hemsworth.
I think she wasn't a virgin after all, though. So
maybe it wasn't. I like that. She goes, we work with what we got.
That was funny.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
but the funniest part of this whole entire movie is the merman. The merman comes and his line is, "Oh, come on."
It was beautifully done. They did a lot of stuff where I love callbacks to earlier in the movie, and they did a lot of that where they rewarded you for like, did you notice this little thing? Well, here you go. And the merman didn't disappoint, by the way.
No, that was
such a great character that they pull him out for a spin-off. So it was actually like a call forward, right? Inspiration for Del Toro.
To wrap things up here, it was a fun movie. I think at the end of the day, it was just fun. It was stupid. It was silly. It was still scary. It had everything you're kind of looking for in a movie like this. I really enjoyed going back and watching it. Again, I don't know if it was the scariest movie in the world, but it was a fun time. And I personally love to see Cabin in the Woods 2, where it's a different group and a different a different monster. I feel like this has legs. I feel like you could do more with it and keep it going somehow.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree.
he ends with the massive giant evil,
Hand.
right? Like
Yeah.
smashing everything else. Oh, I spoiled it.
Yes, that's the it's the but with the way this movie is presented, you could do Cabin in the Woods too and have them be like, "Yeah, remember last year we almost didn't make it," and then like
Right.
that was a close call, and you just be like, "Okay, whatever."
Also, can I say that hand at the end, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Eternals,
Oh yeah, for sure.
right? There's
Maybe.
something similar up there. So we got Thor, we got a giant hand from the Eternals. So where are the Avengers, right? Maybe the sequel could be like a combination of the two. It's like
That
Doctor
extra
Strange
credits. End credits is
in the
Samuel L. Jackson.
multiverse of madness that meets all this evil.
I'd love to see Samuel L. Jackson in this franchise.
Yes.
Be like,
Yes.
I'm sick of these Buckners on this cabin.
And that Buckner girl, one arm with the axe to Sigourney Weaver's dome. That was impressive.
Again, something where she kept sneaking up behind people and never quite made it.
Never made it.
She finally did it, and it was like, yes.
Perfect.
I do like too how Marty got
A
rid of
little
her by
weird.
just sort of like kicking her off the side and like falling down.
Yeah, I thought for a second he was gonna like spare her.
But yeah, I loved it. I thought this was a fun movie. I really enjoy getting to go back and watch it. I want them to make a sequel. Theo, you're the guest, so you get the last word on the movie. So Andy, what were your final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of things you were saying. I think they could definitely do like Cabin in the Woods, and then it's the next cast, and maybe it's the Hemsworth we see what happens with the Hellraiser. That little whatever that thing is. I don't know what you call that thing. I don't know. The demon box.
Yeah.
It was definitely like Truman Show versus Evil Dead, which I thought was a cool way to kind of be like, cool, we're going to have some jokes, we're going to have some voyeurism, and we're going to have a lot of gore and all the monsters. So I just thought it was cool. It was a super fun movie to watch, especially like if you weren't watching that movie and you just saw the last 15 minutes, you'd come in and be like, what is this? Just like nightmare time. But like Theo said too, the visual effects are so cool, and just the way the monsters look and the way they move is all done very well. So, and I thought it was cool the way they had like the people in the cabin, how it went to all like the stereotypes that they called them out. Just a well done movie and very unique, very different.
Yeah, Theo, do you think that they could pull off a sequel? And what were your overall thoughts of this movie?
I think it would be interesting to see at least what happened to the giant monster at the end. So they could start from, like trying to explaining a little bit how the world was saved, and then maybe like re-release someone that would re-release the evil. Like, maybe they found a way to kind of control this through Hellraiser's magic box.
Maybe they take it to the next level of kind of like where they release Godzilla to stop whatever the monster is. They make fun of those movies where they get another evil creature to stop the big hand.
Yes, Godzilla and the Avengers versus all the evil.
Oh, you know what I thought of too? We never talked about those little kids in Japan turn that demonic woman thing into a frog.
Into a frog?
Yes.
Amazing. Anyway.
Yes, and everyone was mad. Everyone was like,
no. I love that where the guy's cussing out all the kids.
Yeah.
You and you and you.
That was great. I was like, wow,
hilarious.
These kids are awesome.
Yes. No, I appreciated the comedy of this movie a lot, to be honest. Like from the very beginning, I thought it would have been a fun movie to watch. Maybe not as scary as I probably wanted it to be. Even though, again, like surprising with the VFX and cinematography also. Good points. And the pacing was so good.
Yeah, the editing's awesome.
Like I said, I love a good 90-minute movie. I love it when they get it under 2 hours for me. That's just, I'm okay with movies going longer. I'm just saying you got to be a really good movie if you're going to break 2 hours is my rule. If you're an okay movie and you go over 2 hours, you're getting a finger wagging from old Jack Farmer.
Even if you have Thor.
Even it well,
Well,
depends how many shirtless scenes he's doing.
asterisk.
But that does it for the movie. It was a fun one. Before we finish, we like to play a little game, Theo, where we see if Andy can connect any of these characters, any of these folks, to Kevin Bacon in 6 moves. It's the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Andy, are you able to do it?
Yeah, this one was a bit more challenging than usual, but I got there. We're going to start with Chris Hemsworth was in
Of
this
course.
movie. He was in The Avengers with Samuel L. Jackson, who was in one of my favorite movies, True Romance, with Brad Pitt. And Brad Pitt was in Sleepers with Kevin Bacon.
Was Samuel Jackson in True Romance?
Oh, yeah. He has got a great cameo in there. I can't
Really?
say
I mean,
his lines on
trust
the
you.
air.
I trust you because
Yeah,
you would know, but
off air, I will tell you the lines he says in that movie.
Okay.
It's pretty gross.
Well, that does it for us. That was the show. Thank you to everyone who's watched. The next episode is going to be 2012's Silver Linings Playbook. Very different from this movie.
A little different.
Then we're going to go to 2014's Identity Thief. And then we're going to 2014's, am I saying this? Ex Machina?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Beautiful movies, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome choices.
Lots of zigging and zagging to different types of movies we're going to be watching.
Yeah.
But should be a fun time. Before we hang up with everyone, though, Theo, where can the world find you and all the stuff you're working on?
Anywhere on social media. Find me on Instagram, TikTok. Literally just Google my name and you'll find me.
Awesome. And Andy, where can the world find you?
You can find me at Just Andy Rossi.
And you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. That does it for us. Thank you to everyone who enjoyed the show, and we will see you all next year.